Welcome to another episode of Wild Authentic Leadership. This episode is all about exploring how to show up as your true self, flaws, strengths, and all, and why it's the greatest act of courage. Today in the studio, we have one of my dear friends here. She's from Ile de Réunion, and we met here in Portugal, I think 2 years ago, maybe? 2 years?
1 year and a half.
1 year and a half ago. And I'm just going to let her do a little introduction of who she is and how she ended up here in Portugal.
Hi, so my name is Laurène and I'm from Réunion Island. It's a little French island next to Madagascar. So I'm French, but tropical French. Yeah, we met last year. I think you were the second person I have met here. Mm-hmm. And just for the story, we met, I don't know if you remember, we met because you were looking for women to go for a women dancing class.
Exactly.
To just make the feminine energy going out a little bit. At the end of the day, we didn't go to the class. We did one. And then for some reason, we just didn't follow we didn't go to this dance class. And the energy masculine is still here, but the feminine is sometimes getting out. But anyway, I arrived in Portugal because I was traveling alone. Mm-hmm. And actually, I went to Portugal a few times and I fell in love with this country. And I knew that someday I will come back, live among the vineyards and write a book. Yeah. And this is what I'm doing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, I was just on vacation. I was in a time of my life that I needed to do things alone. And I just didn't went back to my life in Réunion. I went back to Réunion to get my stuff, to get my animals, and now I'm living here.
Yeah. Full-time settled in
Portugal.
Full-time,
yeah. And I'm a journalist and I'm content creator, and so I'm still doing this.
It's a pleasure to have you here today.
Thank you.
So today we're going to talk a little bit more on what it truly means to be yourself. And as well, like Laurène also already mentioned it, like the way we travel, especially when we solo travel, we find parts of ourselves, sometimes parts that were always there, that we knew somehow they were hidden in the back, and we have to just reconnect with it. And solo travel brought me a whole other life, and I feel like it also brought you a whole other life.
Yeah, it did. So, about that, can you remember one moment, the one you realized that you were trying too hard to fit in, and how this shift your perspective?
Yeah, sure. For me, coming out of college, my whole dream was to go travel solo in Australia. And for the first time, and probably one of the only times in my life, I listened to other voices. I listened to people close to me that told me, you have this great job opportunity. You have this incredible company that you could work for. Why would you give it up and go to Australia? Australia is always going to be there. And in that moment, I betrayed myself a little because I listened to people in my environment and I went for the job, I went for the career, but a part of me deeply regretted making that decision because I was meant to do that trip. I was meant to go to Australia by myself. And fast forward, it took some hard lessons, but in the end, I ended up in Australia, and that trip completely altered my life. It was in the outback in Australia that for the first time I found peace and quiet. And that's the moment I started to ask myself a very important question. am I still loving my life? Am I still loving the things that I do day to day? And if one of the most important questions that I ask myself frequently is, if tomorrow my life would end, if tomorrow all of this ends, would I still live my life exactly the same way? And in Australia, I realized it was not. So a long story short is, it was a time that I listened to outer voices, that I took the obvious roads that is paved for so many people. You come out of college, you take the job, and before you know it, a few years later, you start asking the question of, what happened to my life? So for me, something to look back on is just stay true to yourself. And the moment you stop trying to fit in is the moment you actually create space for who you truly are.
So this happened when you first traveled alone.
That was not my first solo trip. My very first solo trip was, there were small parts here in Europe where I also traveled solo. But the most impactful one was Central America. I was still in college. I was studying international business. And for some reason, I found the courage to pick up a backpack and travel to the other side of the world by myself. And how comfortable solo traveling is in my life right now. If I look back at that moment, and maybe you're going to realize that the first time and you're young and you travel solo, age doesn't matter, but like it's this feeling when, especially for me, the first time I traveled solo, I got on that plane and I think I went to the bathroom like 25 times. I was so stressed. I was so out of my comfort zone. I was so panicking. I was literally panicking because I remember that flight went through Canada, and even though I'm Belgian, I was raised, I'm a Flemish native, I'm a Dutch native, yet we do get French at school, we get English, I think second grade or something. So you think you come out of high school and you're like, I can speak French, I can speak English, and then you get on that plane and just start speaking French with a Canadian accent, and then you're like, oh my God, I don't understand a word they're saying. And that really made me panic to the point where I got so extremely desperate that I took a piece of paper and I wrote on the paper on the back, can someone please take care of me? I was so desperate, but like so extremely desperate. I was like, I don't speak the language. I arrive in Mexico. I don't speak Spanish. Like nothing is going to go right. I was just panicking. And I was to the point where I was like, okay, I have a credit card. I'm going to buy the first flight back to Europe. Even Morocco is close enough to Europe. It's okay. Like I'm just going to fly back immediately. And I remember that once the plane landed, it was so much happened on that plane. There was someone had to be escorted out. There was like a lot of people panicking and screaming, and it was delayed. Like it was for the first time solo traveling to the other side of the world. It was a lot, and that just made the experience even more intense. But I remember the moment that the plane landed, and I got my backpack, and for some reason I could breathe, and I walk out of the airport doors, they slide open, and there is a taxi driver that I already booked up front. And because I had a 4-hour delay, I was 100% sure that person was gone. But he was there, and he looked at me, and the one sentence that I will never forget in my life was, "You look like you need a tequila." That was it. Yeah, I do.
In English?
Yeah, in English.
Okay.
You look like you need a tequila. And just to say how far out of my comfort zone solo travel was, but that moment, it changed everything. From that moment onwards, I started traveling solo all the time, took planes to the other side of the world, went deep into to the outback, but also like in Siberia, like border with Kazakhstan and so on. Like I went to so many incredible places and never that extreme fear came up as the first time. But you just have to expand your own comfort zone.
Do you have a number of how many solo trips you have made? And is there a good timing for solo traveling when you traveled alone? Do you go for 1 month, 6 months, a week? What is the...
I think the best time of your life is every time that feels good to you. Every moment that you need it, even though you're scared. But if there is something calling you to do it, you should do it. And I feel like everyone in their life should grant themselves the possibility and the gift, give themselves the gift of solo traveling, because you also experience that. Like it brings you so much closer to who you are. And there is just something about solo traveling that is liberating. It's scary, but it's liberating. And when it comes to how long it should take, there are so many practical stuff that just comes up. Like I remember when I went to Australia, one of the biggest issues was that I had my job, and because I has too many projects and responsibility, they wouldn't allow me to go for a month because I wanted to go for sure for a month. It's Australia. It's not like you go from Belgium to the south of France, right? It has to be a decent amount of days. And it was a big thing to just get that a couple of weeks in Australia. Was it too short? Yeah. I think a solo trip the longer, the better. But if it feels too scary, just start with a city trip. It doesn't even have to be out of the country. Just start small. If that's so far off your comfort zone, take a city trip by yourself to one of the nearest cities and start there.
To go back on the lessons of what you learned from traveling solo, what did this experience, what did traveling solo teach you about who you are at your core?
So much. So much. First of all, it gave me the courage to fully trust myself. Because if you travel solo, one of the best guides that you have with you is your own intuition. Especially as a woman, it's the intuition that keeps you safe. And I'm not saying that when things go wrong and sideways that it's your own fault. Not at all. But like your intuition is one of your best guides, and you learn to connect so much deeper with it when you're traveling solo, because you have to. You have to watch your environment. You have to trust people and look them in the eye and really listen to your intuition. What does it say? And don't act out of fear, but act out of trust and openness, because most people that you will meet, they're just the best people ever. Like you will build genuine connections there. For me, also something that I truly explored when I was younger, and that first trip to Central America was staying with local families, taking local transport. Just really indulge into the culture. And I didn't realize it back then, but it's something you realize looking, like you connect the dots later on. But like for me, that trip, it planted all the seeds for my business, Travel Rebel. It was there in Central America that I discovered my passion for ecotourism. It was there that I discovered my passion for photography. It was there that I discovered my passion of like sharing my travel experiences and connecting with people and building local experiences. But of course, I was just, I don't know how old I was, 19, 20-year-old. And it's only 4 or 5 years later that I created Travel Rebel, but it started there. The seeds were planted there. And you get so true about what you really like, because there is no one to push you around or to pull you into what they really like. You can just be really yourself. You can let yourself be guided through
this is
want.
So do you think that when we travel alone, we can realize more and learn more about who we are, and and more about what we expected that we actually are. I mean, don't know if you see what I mean.
For me, at least, it's one of the greatest tools in my life. The traveling, the solo traveling especially, it's one of the best tools to connect with who I really am. It's also the best tool for me to start trusting life, the universe, God, whatever you want to call it. Everyone has their own name for it. But those trips, especially Costa Rica, it gave me so much trust in life and flow and ease. And I remember when I went to Costa Rica, which was during the pandemic, some borders were just opening up, and therefore the whole tourism industry shifted significantly. And I was in Costa Rica working quite a lot because I ran my company, Travel Rebel. And while I was in the environment of Belgium and the lockdowns, and so many people in your close environment are going through so much fear, so much tension, one way or another, you start to get that same stress, that same contraction, that same energy into your body. And sometimes just getting into a new environment, it opens you up completely. It gives you a complete different energy. And as much as I felt that contraction in Belgium with the lockdowns, there's also a part where I actually went back to working a normal job because my family was pushing me like, oh, there are so many lockdowns and you have a company in tourism and you're never gonna survive with a company. Like, you should take a regular job. And looking back, probably that was all for a good reason, but I listened again to those voices. It's one of those moments that I really regret, or I take into the account the lessons that I learned there. But 2020 for us was a challenge. Like, I was traveling nonstop. The team was traveling nonstop. I remember I was speaking at a conference in Serbia about sustainable tourism, and all of a sudden, everything gets, all the borders close. And we had back-to-back campaigns, back-to-back trips for months scheduled, and everyone started to panic. So they all canceled all the trips. For me personally, that was a breath of fresh air, because for the first time I could actually sleep in my own bed for more than 4 days a month. And the same way, as I say, like, I needed to breathe. And by being in Belgium, by being in an environment where there's just more space, more time because of COVID, the pressure was different, I started to connect more and more with myself, but also I found a way to pivot the company. And it was this challenge that I really loved. Like, how can we change the business model a little bit? How can we adapt to this new situation? And with a young company, that's possible. Like, you can shift your business model. And 2020 turned out to be the best year so far. But even though we were doing well, my family was panicking, and they were pushing me towards, you should take a regular job. You should make sure you have safety and security and blah, blah, blah. And my ex-boyfriend back then was just searching for someone. So I took a job with my ex-boyfriend, which already sounds like a good Netflix episode in itself. And even though when I was working there, I think I needed it. I needed that closure as well, because I've been with that guy on and off for like almost 10 years in my life. So it was a really toxic relationship. And I needed that closure. And I needed to also see for myself, no, my business is doing well. Like, I make more in 2 minutes with my own company than I make here in a couple of weeks or months. Like, I needed that confirmation, and I needed to change my environment. So I literally said, after a plant medicine ceremony, like I'm gonna go for my travel company. I was gonna go to Guadeloupe for work for Christmas. Afterwards, I'm flying to Costa Rica, and I don't know if I'm coming back, to be honest. And I needed that phase in my life. I needed to be pulled back into people that are around you that are scared, the environment that contracts, to really break free and to really see for myself, no, I got this. I got a company that fulfills me financially, spiritually, in growth mindset. And I went to Costa Rica, and just because I was changing my environment, just because I was putting myself first, everything started to flow. And I started to see that I can trust life, that I can trust the universe. Money came in super easily. I was having the time of my life. I had a good work-life balance. I had a good masculine and feminine energy balance. So things just flow, but you have to dare to sometimes step away from what you know into a new environment to give yourself time and space to breathe.
So that's bring us back to what you just said about the intuition. Why do you think that trusting your intuition is such a powerful skill, both in travel and in your life?
I do feel that following your intuition is one of the most authentic things, or one of the core things for authentic leadership. The reason why is because if we start connecting to our inner wisdom, when we start connecting to our intuition, it never leads us astray. There will always be a reason why your intuition is telling you to go for something or not. And it's a full body yes. And when it's like, I don't know, it's a no. It's either a full body yes or it's a no. And it's not just in traveling where it keeps you safe, but it guides you also to, that bar looks pretty nice. Let's just flow and see, and your intuition is calling you there. And then you meet 3 new friends that are having a major impact on your life. But it can also be in business where you really have to trust your intuition. And we can even look at Elon Musk, which is one of the biggest names in the entrepreneurial world. He also said, like, when it comes to hiring people, you can check all the metrics, you can check their resume and so on, but it comes down to intuition. It comes down with business decisions, with hiring people, with the path, the business model. A lot of it comes down to following your own intuition.
And can you share a moment when you at some point followed your intuition, even if you knew maybe that was not a good idea, or maybe it wasn't the right choice to do?
A lot. I made a lot of big, important decisions against all odds, against most rational advice that you could get. And just because I heard the call, I still went all in on it. And it's too early to say if it's all going to work out for the better, but I do trust when you have a full body yes, when you really feel it in your body that you should do something, the universe and life always supports courage. Like, they will always support you with your courageous choices. And for me, one of those examples is the land. We just talked about it on the way here. I bought that land way above market average price and without a clear idea, and I had to pay it in cash. Well, I had to pay it in full. And it's against all odds. It's against all odds. But I saw the land and something clicked, and 2 weeks later, the land was mine. Everything fell into place. Even though rationally, why would you waste? Why would you invest a big part of the money in cash that you have, like in money that you have in the bank that you can immediately invest, on a piece of land where there is like no house, there is nothing there? That's like not a many rational people will tell you like, oh, that's a good, smart decision in life. But I could feel it in my body. It was a yes. And the fact that in 2 weeks later, it was signed, it was paid, it was mine, something tells me it's meant to be. even though it's against all odds.
Can you, I would like to go back on when you decided to jump on really like 2 feet on your business. What was the scariest part of quitting your job to start your company? How did you take that first step?
I would say that taking that first step was not easy, and I needed a little push from my best friends. Sometimes we just need someone to give us that little push to say, you got this. So while I was still working as a solution engineer, I was building my first company, Fast Bloomers. It was a company to help startups grow internationally. And I was building that after my hours of my normal job. And I was focusing so much on like getting the website right and the branding and so on. But I was not daring to take the leap and jump, as you say, 2 feet right into it. And it was my best friend on a sunny Sunday afternoon in Bruges that told me, like, why don't you just go for it? Just have the guts. Monday morning, you walk out to your manager and you just tell him, I'm starting my own company. And I needed that push. I needed someone to tell me, it's okay, you got this. What do you have to lose? And it's true. I didn't have like a loan. I didn't have a family. So I could take a risk. It was just me holding myself back.
So when you did you feel like you had to know it all? Or did you just feel like, okay, I'm just going to trust the journey?
Back then, when I was so young, for my first company, I thought I had all the answers. I studied international business. I knew a lot about startups. I knew a lot about what I was trying to bring into this world. For some reason, I was overly confident that I had all the answers, which turned out I did not.
You never.
You never have them. But in my mind, back then, I was like, oh no, I got this. Like, there was no real self-doubt so much. But of course, I had my big learnings in my first company. It was especially about like long sales cycles, not having the team and the expertise to take on big projects like I was trying to get. But I learned so much from it. And then Travel Rebel actually started very, very fast after I started my first business. And there, things just fell into place. They were just flowing. It was in a matter of a week. There were 6 deals in. It all flew. Like, it was just flowing so fast. So I didn't really think about, like, do I have all the answers to make that happen? It was just happening already. And that business was a big part about digital marketing. And I'm not a specialist in digital marketing. But what I did, I got an incredible team, people that are try to hire people that are smarter, at least in certain things that you are not as smart in. Get yourself a team. And it just grew. And I learned so much on the go from that. But now, when I start my third, fourth, and fifth business, now I really sit with that question. Like, I'm really learning from the universe, from life, that it takes courage to take a leap, to build something from true purpose and not have all the answers. And I think it's one of the reasons why I'm meant to be telling my story, is because at this moment, when I'm starting this new company, I don't have the answers. And even though I have a lot of experience in creating companies and business models, I don't have all the right answers. And I feel like life is really pushing me into this learning and uncomfortable place of, do you really trust life? Do you really trust the universe? Can you still take that leap? And for me, this feels super scary, but I'm trying to walk this path and just braving the wilderness and doing it. Just scared, small steps, but trying to do it anyhow.
And what would you say to someone who is stuck in the waiting the perfect moment to start something new?
Be gentle with yourself, first of all. Know that you're at the edge of something so big, life-changing. And be gentle and know that this fear is normal, but surround yourself with people that support you no matter what. And I'm not saying friends that don't know anything about that fear that can help, but like try to surround yourself with entrepreneurs, with people that are walking this path as well, that know those fears, that know the ups and the downs. It's one of the major reasons why I started Fire Circles. Fire Circles is a gathering around a bonfire where we bring entrepreneurs from this area, from Ericeira, together, where we talk about the ups and the downs of entrepreneurship. We have people that already exited their company. There were multiple million companies. We have people starting out that have a hard time to call themselves an entrepreneur, to really embody the new version of themselves. And somehow, Fire Circles, this tribe, it helps. It helps in the support. It helps to realizing you're not the only one that has to overcome this fear. And when you're really feeling stuck, there is like this beautiful image that I also have to remind myself quite a lot of. You have 2 letters, and here are the goals. And one letter, those stairs, those steps, they're so far away, but it's only 3 steps and you're already there. And then on the other side, you have a ladder with small steps, but there are probably 25 of those small steps. But at least when you're at the bottom, you can reach for the next one. That one is like, okay, I can get there. That's something I can do. Well, if you look at this part and it's only 3 steps to get to the top, you can never reach that next step. It's too far out. Like, just start small. Do it messy. Don't search for perfectionism. Don't go all into this like rabbit hole of everything needs to be perfect. I need to know it all, because you're just wasting your own time. And it's easy to get stuck in there, and it's easy. Like I'm also facing this. Like I'm also now taking courses of Harvard and public speaking, and like I'm taking so many courses and everything I can get my hands on. And it's a way of avoiding to take those small single steps. And sometimes we don't need to see the full picture. We don't need to see the whole path, because honestly, when you start a business, and maybe you also experience that, we have a clear idea of like, oh, this is how it's going to look. And then you start, and it's actually not at all like that. And you just get started, and there's a sidetrack that works even better, that gives you even a better solution and a better life and a better company. But you have to just take that first step.
You talked about purpose.
Mm-hmm.
This is important. Purpose is also understanding the why. Mm-hmm. Did you understand your why?
Not when I started my first company. And maybe for the better. Sometimes we...
yeah. But do you think that discovering your why changed the way you approached a business, or the way of you can embrace life? I would like you to talk about that.
Yeah, it's the moment I discovered my real why, it changed my whole life.
Do you remember?
I remember that moment exactly. And it's not a pretty story. It was pretty rough. I was already, like, I had already 2 companies, and I realized, like, for me to grow, I need to invest in coaches, in mentors, something smart that I would recommend everyone. Like, if you start a business, there will come a part where you just have to keep evolving as a human being as well. For the company to grow, you have to grow. So I took that step, started coaching. What I didn't realize was during the coaching, they would really, really go into like this hard question of why. And it's one of the most beautiful, and it's one of the hardest questions that we can ask ourselves. Why do we do the things we do? And I remember being in that coaching, and they were just, it was like peeling an onion. They were just, why, until the point where I just was crying like a little baby. I was on the floor, curled up, everything hurt. I can still feel that moment so deeply. And what came out was that my biggest fear was that I wanted to have kids, I wanted a family, but I also know that I am an entrepreneur. And those things you cannot combine, because I could not see my parents successfully combine those things. There was no time for me as a kid. They wanted a bigger family, they just didn't have the time. And that pain, that part of my reality as a kid, or the story I told myself as a kid, it became this whole limiting belief. And realizing how much pain that evoked and how much it was limiting my future, the future that I want, that really brought me to my why. And knowing that this is why I'm meant to be here, to change the story for myself, to really find a way of how can I be a successful entrepreneur, maybe run multiple businesses, and how can I be a present mom and have a family and bring it all together. And to really know this is my truth, this is who I really am, this is the reason why I walk this earth. If I can do it for myself, it's already full circle. But if I can inspire other people, if I can help others to also reach that, I think that my life, my mission, the reason why I walk this earth is already fulfilled.
But why do you think it's so important to find your why for authenticity in a long-term fulfillment?
Because there is this good study where, for example, Maslow, like, we need the fulfillment, we need the safety, we need the food, we need the water, we need sex, we need all those basic parts of the pyramid of Maslow. But like, fulfillment is in how can we grow, how can we really find a purpose, how can we really evolve and grow. And that's something that I think every human being is walking this earth with a deeper why, but it's so hard to find that deeper why. And once you find it, every single action that you need to take in life, every single thing that you do in life, it becomes so much easier, because you can always ask yourself the question, is this going to bring me closer to my why? And that just makes it so much easier to make aligned life decisions when you know your truth, when you know your why.
And can you share a moment when you realized you were chasing something others expected of you, rather than what truly lit you up?
I think what I was chasing that was not really me was my career in this tech scale-up. It was this very, I wouldn't call it glamorous, but like this very sexy job. It was a sexy company. It was always in magazines and newspapers. And it was a super fast-growing, fast-moving company. So I started as a junior solution architect. I grew into solution architect. I grew into solution engineer. And I was building my way up and up and up. And I was burning myself out big time. Because, as I said, like, my truth is I'm an entrepreneur. As long as I don't do what I'm meant to be doing, you burn yourself out. You lose the energy. One way or another, that story is going to end, because it's not who you truly are. And you can only hold on the mask for so long.
Can you share a time when letting go of perfectionism helps you move forward in a meaningful way?
Yeah. Perfectionism for me is the killer of all greatness and courageous steps, because we get so lost there. And perfectionism is just not allowing ourselves to be truly seen, because we want to hide between, if I'm 100% perfect, everyone is going to like me. And the reality is, that's never going to happen in life. If you do something in the world, if you do something meaningful, if you want to grow, there are always going to be people that don't agree with you. There are always going to be people that have comments that try to pull you down, but it's their story. It's not yours. And perfectionism is just a way of armoring up, protecting ourselves of being truly seen, because no one is perfect. No one, not you, not me, no one. No one is perfect. But we can build genuine, real connections when we allow others to see us in our imperfect ways, in our real ways, in our authentic way. And when it comes to business, you get so easily trapped in this perfectionist state. But the moment you show up with your real story, with your raw energy, with who you really are, you will find customers that are exactly aligning with who you are, what you bring to the table. And we don't always need to hide behind this perfect wall just to armor up, to keep ourselves safe.
And as an entrepreneur, do you agree with the idea of being messy but real?
I think it's one of the most beautiful things. I think like when we can leave perfectionism out and just be messy and real, that's the most beautiful thing. There is this beautiful quote, I don't know if I'm going to say it 100% right, from Brené Brown, but it's like this imperfect, messy part. It's the part of me that it's the last part that I want to show the world. It's the last part of me, my messy part, that I want to show to you. But it's the first thing that I'm going to look at with you, because it's the way I'm going to connect and feel connected with you. So it's the part of us, this messy, raw self, that we hide we hold on so tight to protect ourselves, to hide it all. Well, it's the first thing that we look at in other people, the first thing that we need for real connection.
But why do you think being messy but real resonates so deeply with people, especially in leadership or entrepreneurship?
Because the world already has too much of this armored up, perfect companies that are just this image of this is it. This is a perfect way you have to manage a team, lead a team. It's all just like, follow this framework, follow this protocol, follow this KPI, like overachieve your KPIs. While real leadership, while entrepreneurship is about, for me, it's helping people grow. It's giving them what they need, the support they need to grow themselves, to give them the space to grow themselves. And you cannot grow if your only aim is perfectionism. Growth is not a road to perfectionism. Growth is messy, growth is real. And as a leader, we're here to empower others to take that messy but real road towards greatness in the end.
So obviously your story is such a unique part of your business. How did you embrace it? How did you learn to embrace it? And how it helped shape your brand?
Mm-hmm. As I said, with Travel Rebel, everything just was flowing so fast that I didn't realize it, but it became a part of my identity, a big part of my identity. And when I moved to Portugal, I didn't resonate anymore with that part of myself. I just wanted to stay here. I didn't want to travel anymore. And when you run a travel company, it's kind of hard, but I had to find another part of myself, another real part of myself. And that story that I'm currently building, that I'm trying to figure out my path to wild, authentic leadership with fire circles, with building new companies, it starts from my why. It starts from my story. But it feels very naked to tell that story over and over again, because it's not perfect. I don't have those answers. And yet, the way I want to build this company, the way I want people to feel this company, the way it can evolve, it needs to start with my truth. It needs to start and reflect in my branding that it's not perfect. And look at the logo. It's a very quick, drawn up artwork and logo There is no aim for perfectionism. It's messy, and it's just reflecting the story that I'm currently living, which is far from perfect, but it's my truth. And I hope that other people that feel like they're just in the middle of so much stuff and there is void and there is not knowing the answers, you can still start.
And what can you advise to those entrepreneurs, those persons that may think that their story is not big enough or not important enough to share, and would think, okay, maybe I'm not an authentic entrepreneur, or I have no story to share, or this is not big enough?
I do believe that everyone has a story to share. And those stories don't always have to be related to your company. I recently was in a meeting where it was business coaching, but someone opened up about the story of their childhood and losing a sister when they were little, and the way their family patterns changed, their environment changed. And it's, even though it's so unrelated to the business, I felt so connected to him. I felt so much of me really wanting to know more about him, trusting him as a leader, as someone who knows his truth, as a person that is just trying to find the answers and speak his truth. And when you have a business, the stories that you tell about yourself, your personal life, your love life, your friendships, the way you go out there in the world and try something new. It can be painting, it can be dancing, it can be all those different things. But I think those stories really matter. There might be someone out there that just needed to hear your story today. There might be somewhere out there that your story made their journey easier. They found the courage to take that leap. I was here in the studio recently with someone as well, and she was scared to take the leap to do a podcast. And I reminded her, like, if your younger version, 7-8 years ago, would have found a podcast of what you're going to talk about today, your journey, how much would that have helped you? And that's the moment it clicked. That's the moment that we know our story matters, because your younger version would have been so much more at ease, so much more feeling safe and delighted if they heard your story. And also for me, in my personal experience, if I buy courses or mentorship, I don't look exactly at the frameworks we're going to learn or exactly the details of that course. I look at that person. Do I trust that person? And that trust is built with real stories, and they don't have to 100% be related to your business.
On fait une pause. Now we are going to change subject. It's about the courage. So I think maybe you want to say the quotes.
Yeah, I'm going to say some of the quotes. I'll try though.
When you said the quotes, because when you did it earlier, you wrote it, so you didn't look at the camera.
Yeah, and that's the problem, because I need to look in the camera for the quotes. Courage isn't about fearlessness. It's about standing in your truth, even when the world tells you to be someone else. It's about fearlessness. It's about standing in your truth, even when the world tells you to be someone else. Courage isn't about fearlessness. It's about standing in your truth, even if the world tells you to be someone else. Thank you, Laurène, for being here today in the studio. It was a pleasure to connect with you in this way and to hear a bit of your story. And thank you all for listening to another episode of Wild Authentic Leadership. I hope to see you at the next one.